How's it going, my G's? It's Artifact. Hope everyone's doing well. On today's episode of 7 Questions, I interview Dane, aka High Frequency. He was actually my first ever production student when I started teaching online during lockdown. And he is a living example of how hard work and determination can get you the results that you want. I hope you guys will enjoy listening to Dane's story. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you smash one of those juicy vegetable subscribe buttons down below. And check out my Discord links and everything, presets and all that down there if you want to support. Anyway, I hope you guys will enjoy the podcast. Let's get into it.
There we go.
How you doing?
How you doing? Yeah, mate. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while, yeah. I can't remember.
No, time flies, doesn't it? So. Is it that? No, was it that long? I remember I had that problem with that vocal, didn't I? Not long ago. Do you remember that session?
I do remember that. Yeah, I think that
really helped me out, by the way. Yeah, it was actually. It was this year, but don't know why. I've oddly been a bit nervous about this. Don't know why.
What, this podcast?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I just see it as like a friendly conversation, and I thought if I ask you the right questions, then we might get some good answers that might help some other people, like with their production career and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, brilliant. Do you know what? It's quite cool because normally we spend a lot of time talking during the lessons. So I actually get to chat to you and don't have to pay you, which is quite nice because it's so easy to get distracted, isn't it? Because, you haven't seen each other for a while. And
it is. Yeah. And I'm quite focused at the moment with with my lessons and stuff. So it's like I don't have much free time either, so
but I appreciate you having me on, mate.
No, absolutely pleasure, mate. So I did try to think of some interesting questions, but I guess they kind of just turned out quite normal.
Generic. I've been trying to guess what kind of questions you're asked. It's gonna be interesting to see what comes up.
So my first one is just like, how did you actually get into D&B?
Oh, right. So
maybe before that you can give us a brief introduction about yourself, because you're kind of new to the industry a little bit. With
very new. Yeah, I mean, I've been in drum and bass since I was about 14.
Yeah.
Originally I was into old school garage.
Okay.
You must have been from the UK, similar age. So, and I funnily enough, I used to really like the UKG kind of MCing.
Yeah.
And I could never MC myself, but I loved it. And I remember I was at school one time and someone, they said, if you like MCing, listen to this tape. And it was a tape of Shy FX, Skibber and Shabba from 2000. And honestly.
Do you remember which one it was?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. PS2000, Skibber and Shabba.
Pure Science.
Yeah, and I always remember.
I think I had that one. Yeah,
it is so good. Skibber starts the set, and you can tell he starts talking about putting your jackets in a cloak around the corner because it's early on in the night. Because a few years later, I managed to get the set after, and it was Brocky back to back with Hype with Skibber and Shabba. And so that they must have been on for 2 hours. And those
the same night.
The same night, yeah. So these two tapes basically forged my love for drum and bass. Okay. I mean, that's quite an introduction to drum and bass with 3 heavyweights, It
was the same with me with Skibber. It was the first time I heard it was I think it was some older boys that used to sort of hang around in my neighborhood. Mm. They were all into MCing.
Yeah.
And then the first thing they showed me was Street Fighter with Skibber and Det. I remember that little track. And then that's the first time I heard it, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? What is happening? I was like, this is so different. So unique.
It's just a world I hadn't been involved with whatsoever. I couldn't even imagine anything like it.
Yeah.
So what happened from then is that we had a friend that was well into mixing. And obviously it was 1210s then, so not many people were turntables, but not many people had decks. So we used to go around his house maybe 15, 16. And I don't know if you ever mix old school garage and vinyl, but it's very hard to mix, And my mate was a bit of a don. So he would mix for hours. We'd all just be sitting there enjoying ourselves. And then afterwards he'd be like, oh, do you want to go? I was like, all right then. There's like 4 lads there sitting there. He just smashed it for like 2 hours. I get on, my hands were shaking. It was a tough place to learn, I'd playing a few mixes and he'd lean over and just turn it down a little bit.
Damn,
yeah, it was brutal. But definitely, it forged like my mixing skills. And from then, my sister met someone at uni who was selling decks. So I got a pair of Newmark direct drives. And then kind of the rest is history, really, in terms of DJing. With production, I met a guy called Slaney, who was, I think he'd kind of met people that had released tunes before. Because you remember back in the day, maybe like, I'm talking like 10, 12 years ago. Yeah. It was a bit more, production was a bit more of a dark art, wasn't it? Like, you didn't have access to the tools you've got now. You kind of needed to know someone. It was just that transition where stuff started to go in the box, rather than all the hardware and stuff.
Yeah. And there wasn't that much knowledge about like production techniques, and there was a lot of like false information, I think.
Yeah, it was, you had to get your information from like DJ mags and stuff like that. It wasn't easy to source it. So generally, if you kind of knew someone, that's how you get into it. And he said, like, why don't you get into producing? So I was like, yeah, good point, really. So I got Reason. Do you ever use Reason?
I've never used it, but
Reason, but it's a bit of a headache, to be honest, because you have to you get all these like hardware modules, and you flip the rack round, and you have to wire the wires to route stuff. Very complicated. But
I'm aware of it. Yeah, I know a few people who use it still, and I'm always surprised that people still use it to this day.
Yeah, I know. Well, I suppose they've introduced like VSTs on it now, haven't they? They didn't have that back in the day. It was all self-contained, which is what I liked, because it wasn't expensive. You have to buy VSTs and whatever else.
How long ago was that then, when you actually started producing?
I think I started producing at 22, and I'm now 36 this year. 36 this year, 37 next year. It's a long time. But
and things only really picked up for you in the last year, didn't they?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think my first release was after the first lockdown in 2020.
Yeah.
So, from the point of first picking up Reason to releasing a tune, I mean, you're looking at the best part of like 13 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that goes to show how it's never too late, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a good example of that, really. But the thing is, I wouldn't say I was putting in the effort into producing that I do now. Purely because I found it really difficult, to be honest. My set, if you start comparing your tracks, professional tracks, from Reason, they just sounded awful, and I went for years of on and off. My friend Slaney, who was, to be honest, he's probably one of the most creative producers I've ever met.
Really?
And we kind of worked together for a while. Like, we wanted to be like a duo. He was really creative, and I was kind of more into like my minimal bass and stuff like that. And we thought like we could find a middle ground, But because I didn't quite have the technical knowledge at the time, I had some kind of ideas to put on the table, but I could never really progress them. Yeah. So he ended up. It was just.
It was a bit too one-sided at the time.
Yeah, and it's no fault of his, because he was he was very creative, but I think he kind of saw the mix down process as like a dark art, and that kind of influenced me. I thought that it was only like years after we'd kind of stopped working together, and I started getting some tuition, that I thought, hang on, it is possible, like the mix down was like this crazy thing that you couldn't do, but once you start getting into it, you do realize it's achievable, so
it becomes you simplify it more and get clear on what you're sort of doing, and this using the space that you've got in the right way, and then it becomes less of a dark art.
Yeah, exactly, because I used to think it had to be really
complicated. I agree. I mean, that's why I would put like 30 plugins on a bass line to try and like get it to this next level, when it was every plugin was actually making it worse.
Yeah, exactly. Like progressively worse as well. Yeah. I know. And your mixes just sound so thin. And
exactly.
Yeah, so that's where I was at. So big up Slaney. If it weren't for him, I would have never got into music. He pushed me to do it, and he was kind of someone I looked up to in terms of music production.
Yeah.
And he never got to the stage where he released stuff, which is such a shame because he had so many great ideas. And then he kind of fell out of it. And then I kind of picked it up a few years later. And lockdown, to be honest, was the perfect opportunity for me.
Yeah.
Because lockdown made me realize that it wasn't that I didn't have the time, that I weren't prioritizing my time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what lockdown did for a lot of people. It shifted their perspectives on what's important, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I had small goals. I just wanted to release a track. I just wanted to first I wanted to finish one, then I wanted to get it mastered, and then it was like I want to release one. But as you know yourself, once you achieve that, you just want to keep moving further and further along, don't you?
So that kind of ties in with one of my next questions. But my next one after this then is, can you just tell us a little bit of a story about your, when you sort of got your first track signed in the last year or so? Because I remember when we were doing our sessions, you were already sort of starting to send some things out and that, and then it wasn't really that long after when you had a few yeses from some big labels like Program and Ram, didn't you, as well?
Yeah. So my first release was with a local guy called Jax. He runs a label called Train Recordings.
Yeah.
And I'd always kind of quite liked his tunes, quite very like stripped back drums and bass, quite vibey. And I always used to send him ideas, and fair play to him. They were ideas, they weren't great tunes. And he'd always used to give me the time, give me a bit of feedback. And eventually, once I had a tune that he liked, he wanted to sign it. And it was like, it was a massive deal for me, man. And like, he puts a lot of effort into the promo.
What was that tune?
It was called Mysteries.
Yeah.
Not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure we'd come across that in our lessons, actually, because that was pre our lessons.
Okay.
And then, funny enough, my second batch of like finished tunes were the ones that got picked up for Program.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Straight to the big leagues.
Straight to the big leagues. And I idolized Ram. Literally, they were my 20s. I used to go to all the Ram nights at the end, at Matter. Yeah. I used to spend all night hanging, because at the end, the DJ booth was in the middle of the dance floor. So like the DJs were on the same level as you. So I could literally hang over the side and Andy C would be like 2 feet away from me, and you could watch him do his thing with all these vinyls, and it absolutely blew my mind. And to think years later that they would have music that I made that they'd want to put out. I was like,
how does that feel then when you sort of got when you sort of realized that it was sort of confirmed, or that it was pretty much in the bag?
There's a bit of a story to it, actually. It was very, very stressful.
Okay.
because they took, and originally they took 3 tunes.
Yeah, and I think I remember this.
Yeah. So Jim wanted an EP, and I thought, great. And I've only got to get together one more tune. So over the next 6 months, I must have sent him 6 or 7 tunes, and it was all like, no. And I was feeling the pressure. I would go as far as it was like it was affecting my mental health. I was getting so stressed out about it because I just couldn't nail this tune, and like it meant so much to me. And I finally had like a liquid tune that I thought would round off the EP nice. And I sent it to them. He was like, "Oh yeah, I really like that, actually. I missed that on the one that you sent before."
Yeah.
So then he said, "Can you just send me all 4 again for a final review?" So I sent all 4, and they come back and said, "Actually, we only want 2."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, great." And at the time, it was like, "Is it going to be on they might be on a various artist release, or it might be a solo release." And I was kind of hoping for a solo release.
Of course,
I want to see my name. I want to see the Ram logo, and he came back and said it's going to be a double single.
Wicked.
And once that was confirmed, it was like, I've done it. There. And
did you celebrate when it happened?
Yeah, like my wife, she bought me like a little she got me like a little photo frame with the artwork on it. Nice. And bought me a couple of things, like they wrote a card. It was like, it was really nice, actually. It was like a big achievement for me. And actually it got the tunes got a decent exposure, like, so both of them have been played on Radio 1.
I think I saw that on your Insta as well. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
which is another thing. I thought, my tunes on national radio,
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that just shows the reach that they have, because I wouldn't say those tunes are any better or worse than any other tunes I've made, but if you get decent tunes
through the right outlet,
exactly. I think it carries some prestige, doesn't it? That if they see one from, I don't know, some random record label that some DJs won't even open it. They see the program release come out, they're going to open it, and they think, right, I like that. I'll get on my show.
It gives you a bit of a shortcut, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's a little bit of a shame for all the great songs that won't get that exposure just because they haven't,
Yeah, I know, and it's kind of the sign of the times. Really, it's the industry. It's tough, isn't it? And that's kind of at the time. That's part of the reason that I wanted to deal with like labels.
Yeah.
And partly it was mainly because I just wanted to release on RAM,
Yeah.
And I didn't think that I didn't think deep down, I didn't think they were good enough, but I mean, maybe that's just an artist thing. But I was surprised that the reaction, and the B-side actually got because you get like the feedback sheets back, don't you? And that turned out to be really popular.
Nice.
Which was like more of a jungle track. So yeah, that whole release was.
I totally get what you mean with the artist thing, because even on my latest one, like so far, I mean, we've only just dropped it, but we've had like really nice feedback. But even when I listen back to it, I'm like, I could have done this bit better again. It's only in my head, no one else's, I think.
Exactly, but because it's in your head, that is it, isn't it? Like it's there. That's what you think, and every time you hear it, you can't get away from it.
Yeah, but that's because that happens. That's why I have to make the next song, and I have to be like, right, I've got to forget about that. Just start something new and forget about it. And that's sometimes my motivation to start something new. It's like,
well, you can't complete it, can you? You can't complete music. It's like similar to, it reminds me of golf actually. I've played a lot of golf, and no matter how well you've played, you could have played better.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like with the music. I release it, I think, I didn't the snare wasn't that good, or the bass doesn't sound as deep as I want it, or and you're always trying to make improvements for the next one, aren't you? But I think that's healthy.
I think so. Yeah,
it pushes you, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that kind of ties in a little bit with my next question. So since like I was giving you some lessons and that, and then after then watching your progress, it really seems like you have a real desire and hunger, and you're like really eager to sort of hustle as well, and and really go for it, even though you've got like a job, you've got family, you don't probably have, you recently had a kid, you haven't got much time. But it seems like you're really like determined and going for it, and like where does that come from?
Well, couple of things really. I think mainly like nothing naturally comes easy to me. Like everything I do, I have to try really hard to get good at it. Like whether it's like golf, whether it's football, anything. Like I'm not a naturally talented person, but I've got that kind of that work ethic and that desire, to do stuff. And once I've got a bit of confidence about me and realize that like I potentially can do it, I try and maximize it as much as I can.
Would you say you're a very competitive person?
Oh, ultra. Yeah. Ultra. Yeah. I mean, if say we went for a beer down the pub and we're playing a game of pool.
Yeah.
I'd want to beat you. It's not. It's I
hope we can one day, mate.
Yeah, me too. Me too, mate.
We've only been metaverse friends for a while.
Yeah, but you better get practicing though, because I will be. No, but I don't know whether it's like the environment I've been brought up, or I've always been competitive because I haven't been as good as everyone else. I think it's made me quite competitive. And it's like, I love the competition as well. It's not, it's a buzz, isn't it?
Yeah, I can sense that about you. And I think that's why you've done so well, is because you have that natural competitiveness.
Yeah. Determination. Yeah, definitely. And I suppose with music, I don't want to have any regrets.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to like 50 It'd be like that geezer, like, oh yeah, I used to make tunes, or I could have done this, or I could have done that.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Well,
you like,
you've got something on one of your childhood favorite labels now, and that'll forever be there now, won't it? So
exactly. It's like it's almost a set. I've got a small part of history, tiny little part of history in the scene that I love, you know, and I've got some kind of legacy that's small, but it's, you know, it's huge for me.
I think it's very big, mate. And didn't you already have a couple of shows after that or something?
Yes, yeah. So I mean,
aside from the ping pong table gig, which looked really looked fun though.
Yeah, it was a good laugh actually. I had a really good day up with the Goat Shed crew. They've been great with me. Funny enough, the guy that runs it, Adam, he gave me my first ever DJ set in a pub in a local village. Yeah, and it was like we had to take our own turntables there and stuff. And yeah, and it's funny that, you know, 15 years down the line or whatever it is, he started a record label on Goat Shed, and I was the first person to release music with them, you know. So that was quite nice. But he's put a lot of effort into kind of like supporting me, because he wants to build a brand not with established artists but with newer artists.
Yeah.
Because you know, they're going to be more hungry and they can grow with the brand. So eventually, you know, when someone books Goat Shed, they book in, you know, a bunch of up and coming DJs, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been great for the support as well. So
and they really came into their own during lockdown, didn't they? I seem to remember.
Yeah,
with their podcasts and things like that. Or
yeah, they raised loads of money for charity. They had some really big like online festivals with some really established artists. And I think the natural progression for them really was to, if they wanted to really get into events, you know, you have to kind of you really want a label, you know, you want a sound. So that's what they're trying to forge. So they're pushing me quite a lot to get bits done, some bootlegs and also all sorts of other bits, and you know, they're always pushing me to get something to them. So yeah, it's great. Really.
Do you need that push for your own motivation of production though, or because I think you've already got that, haven't you?
Yeah, but I think like it is difficult with the baby as well. So just like the tiredness and stuff, like, but when you get like little wins here and there, it gives you more of a push to keep going, you know. Sorry, I got slightly distracted because my wife walked in the room and then turned the light off.
No worries.
Yeah, so I'm not going to lie, like I am a determined person, but there's been a lot of lows with music for me. Like I've got so frustrated with it at times. I punched my keyboard, stormed out the room, haven't spoken to my wife all night, you know, because I wanted it so bad. I remember I was trying to figure out how to make like a fizz on a sub bass. And I just couldn't get it right. I was trying for like 3-4 days and it was driving me around the bend.
White noise.
Yeah, and then I found a little white noise generator and a bit of satin like on the top end, and I was there, you know. But yeah, it was very, it has been frustrating at times, but you know, sometimes when you look back on it and the gigs come in and tracks get played on the radio, and you know, when people come in your inbox on Instagram, someone you've never known, like, oh, I love your tune. Like,
it's always a sign you know you're doing well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Especially like established artists like Siren, who released on RAM. One of the guys from there messaged me and said, oh, I really love your tune. And I was like, wow, this is like, you know, established artists saying they like my music. Yeah, so you got to take the wins, haven't you?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, wicked, mate. Nice one. Yeah, next question for you then is something I'm quite interested in asking you actually, which is what advice would you give to someone about contacting and communicating with other people in the industry that are sort of, you know, in a position to make things happen for you? Because from what I've noticed is you seem to have sort of spread your sound and made connections like in sort of different areas with different people in the industry.
Yes.
And I have a feeling that you're quite good at talking to people or finding the balance of also not, you know, spamming and hassling people, but also doing enough to make them actually, you know, make things happen for you.
Yeah, well, good question, really. I suppose first and foremost, you've got to have the product, haven't you?
Yeah.
Really, look, you've got to know. Like, I have like a circle of friends that I send ideas to, and they've really helped me out over the years. And when I get the okay from them that, yeah, these tunes are decent, even though I personally haven't rated them, I think, all right, these are good. Who can I target with these tunes? You know, you got to go to a label that's gonna. It sounds so obvious, but you know, you don't go to a neuro label with like a minimal foghorn tune or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
so every kind of style I've made, because I make quite a diverse tracks. You know, I make some jungle, some dance floor, some liquid, and I always try to approach labels that will be suitable to that
style.
to that style. And then I've just tried to be like really professional and prompt. You know, so when I introduce myself in an email, you know, I'll say my name, tiny bit about me, short and sweet. Thank them for their time. Attach the music, and generally, I've got to be honest. Like, everyone I've dealt with has been really, really sound.
Yeah.
Like, even like with Ram, when they were saying no to the tracks. Yeah. You know, it bruises your ego a little bit, but you know, they're not being nasty. They're a business, you know. You've got to be good enough. So try not to get. I reckon people can get a little bit bitter about negativity. But for me, I just think I take it on board and think, well, it's not good enough yet, is it? And then use that determination to move on. So yeah, but I'd also say if you promise a label to do something, like get a tune to them at a certain day, I'll send you it tonight. Don't send it tomorrow or the next day or the day after. Send it when you say you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because people like that. You know, everyone's busy and they don't want people wasting their time, do they? So
yeah. Have you found that you'd often sort of be emailing them then rather than hitting them up personally
So I've emailed a couple. It's been a mix of both, actually, Instagram. But again, it's kind of contacts. Goat Shed, I knew Adam from a long time ago. Chain Recordings, I knew Jack. So, you know, it just shows that a bit of networking is quite important, you know. And now I can't, you know, I'm not going to be raving every weekend, but just approaching people on Instagram and, you know, taking the time to listen to their music as well. Don't just approach them and just be like, oh, can you do this for me? You know, to comment on their tracks, really listen to their stuff, really understand what they're like. And then when you approach them, they're like, oh, I've seen this guy comment before. And, you know, they'd be more receptive to you speaking to them. For instance, I messaged your student son for a collab.
Oh, right. Wicked. That would be amazing.
Yeah, because I had a couple of tracks that I thought would suit his style, which I'm kind of stuck with. So, yeah, just approached him. And
has he been back in touch as well?
Yeah, he got him back in touch straight away. Actually, that'd be sweet. Despite all my good advice, I actually still haven't sent in the stems. Kind of stitch yourself up there a little bit, but yeah, don't be afraid to approach people, you know. And if they say no or they don't message back, just get on with it. But yeah, try not to like be negative about that kind of stuff, really. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good advice, mate. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. My next question for you is, can you share with us one production gem, maybe something that you struggled with for a while and suddenly it just changed because you heard something or you decided to do something a different way and it just kind of clicked? Or, you know, one just, I mean, there's probably many things, but maybe one off the top of your head, something.
Off the top of my head is what we've touched on earlier. Don't over process.
Okay.
Start with some good samples. You know, if you layer in, don't layer a few things and be like, right, I'm going to compress the shit out of it and then saturate it and do this and that to get this snare sounding good. If it's not sounding good as it is, you can get it sounding better. But if it's sounding sweet to begin with, you know, things are going to be a lot better when you start doing some processing to it, especially with like drums. I suppose bass and stuff is a little bit different, isn't it? Because you can get quite creative.
Yeah.
When I used to over process with drums, they just sounded really flat.
100% agree. Yeah.
And then I used to try and compensate with that lack of depth by boosting the sub.
Yeah.
louder. So
Yeah.
then you'd have it all subby. It just becomes a mess, really. So that I think that's the main thing, is just good quality samples, and try and get the track sounding, especially the drums, quite good with layering, before you start the processing.
Yeah, definitely. Getting the dynamics in there, adding some
Yeah,
little bits of depth to the whole drums before you
ex-
even.
yeah, exactly. Because I used to I just get like a kick and a snare, a couple of layers and a hat, and start processing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, mate. Any mistake you could have made, I've done. And another thing I think is really important is sends.
You like them, do you?
I like sends. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know you can do sends in different ways, though, can't you? Because you can bounce stuff and then use that as a send layer, but just as like a WAV below it.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I remember in one of our lessons when you were talking about some reverb and snares, instead of like a send, you'd bounce it quite wet and then layer that into it.
Yeah.
But I think, doing layers with sends or the same sound but processed different is quite a cool way of getting a fuller sound without too much crazy processing.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I always do that. It's, for me, it's like it's more the layering though. Like I'll sort of make I won't actually use the send like knob. I'll just make that version of send how it's going to be, and then bounce that, and then have it as the audio. Because the only one thing that I don't like about sends is that you don't see it. And then, like, if you, for example, leave the track for a few weeks and come back, and then you're like back in the mix down, and you don't remember that the send was there because you can't like see it on the actual in the project,
Right.
And then you're like, where's that sound coming from? I've got like 12 sends that are doing different stuff, and I can't see.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and also, like, you can when it's working with WAVs, because I love working with WAVs the same as you do. You got quite a lot of control with it as well, because if you've got tails and stuff, you can chop bits up and use them for cool effects and percussion. So yeah, I think that no matter how you do it, just layering sends is a really important thing in my production anyway. So
yeah, that's how you really add that sort of three-dimensional element to a sound, isn't it?
Yeah, especially with like a bass, because you can just drive the shit out of something.
What do you like? So for a production gem, then from your style, what do you love to like do with like a bass layer or something? What would be one of your favorite ways to process it?
I do like adding the noise to a bass, and then I use like Saturn, like the multi-band distortion, to kind of add that kind of like crunch to the top end.
Well, you were adding some noise in it before that, and then using Saturn after.
Yeah, and then what I'll do, if it depends what kind of track it is, but if it's like something quite heavy, then I'd do. With basses, it's funny actually. With basses, I more use the bouncing, but with with drums and like reverb, I will normally do sends. But especially like delay and stuff, I'll do sends. But and I'd really go crazy on the bass, so it's really like it sounds so distorted, and then just mix that in really quietly, because then you can go a bit crazy with the width and stuff like that, and then it's only just a subtle layer in there that just gives it a little bit of movement, a little bit more tone to it, but following kind of the pattern that you've got.
And taking out some of the low end on that as well, or sort of just leaving it in?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I try, and if I do leave it in, later on in the mix down process, I have to make sure that that's mono, that low end. But generally, do you know what I found actually is that if I do the distortion, especially the decapitator, if I do that with the low end in it, it gives it a much warmer distortion. And then I'll put an EQ afterwards. Sometimes if I EQ first and then decapitate, it doesn't give you that drive that you want,
I haven't really actually talked about that much in my tutorials and things, but it's something that's always in the back of my mind, is like distorting with the low end on, and then to then like cut it afterwards, because you're totally right. You get a more colorful and flavorsome distortion when the low end's in there, and you distort that as well.
I mean, it's such a Ponzi term, like all the warmth, but it really is. It's just like there's so much more weight to it. And do you know, I only stumbled across that recently, and it kind of transformed. And I never used to think the capitator was all that, because I could never get it to sound good. But then suddenly did it on sub, I was like, "It's the best thing ever."
Okay.
So yeah, that was quite key for me. I think that's a good. Especially like, I mean, I don't know about other genres, but when you're making drum and bass, I think that really adds a nice layer.
Yeah. Yeah, Decapitator's absolute classic. Been using that for a while. And yeah, it's I find I use it less and less these days, but there's always some kind of reason for it. It always pops its head up again sometimes.
I've never really used it on drums or anything. Sorry, 1 second. So I've got the Discord channel keeps beeping in my ear. Yeah, I've only ever found that is for me. I've only ever really to get good results on bass with it.
Yeah,
I never really use it for anything else.
Yeah, same here, I think.
So yeah. So a couple of gems in there.
There's a couple of gems there for the folks. Yeah, wicked. Appreciate that.
I hope that helps some people.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I've got 2 questions left for you then. So the next one is think like really extreme. What would be like your wildest ambition or of something that could happen through your music career? Like what would be like this is like I mean, you've already achieved something so great, I guess, with signing to RAM.
Yeah,
that was already a massive goal for you. But like, what could be the next step? Like, what would be something that's like, fucking hell, this is amazing that this has happened as well?
Well, maybe something that's unrealistic, but slightly possible. I'd love to chart something in the UK charts.
Yeah.
That, like, I know that doesn't sound that amazing, but like, I don't know. I think like if you get something in the charts, like, I just think that would really elevate you as like an artist. I just think that would be a wicked legacy to have. You know, like to make like an anthem, you know, something like Afterglow, something like that, which people still play 10 years down the line. You know, they're still getting played on the last set of the night.
Something you might hear in H&M.
Yeah, but also you'd hear at six in the morning, and then, you know, hands in the air, like to finish off the rave. You know, something like that, something that's universal, and it's like timeless. That would be an amazing goal for me personally. I think that would be wicked.
Wouldn't be outside the realms of your skills, though, would it?
Possibly not. I think I'd have to brush up more on my like musical theory. Yeah. And like, I've got like melodies have never been my strong point. Like just bass and drums for me, really. You know, when you're playing with chords and everything else, it's a different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah. Totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be like a crazy goal. But do you want to hear a more achievable goal?
Yeah, and a more like nearer term or realistic sort of.
I'd like to continue releasing music regularly over the next decade, and I'd like to just gig regularly, really.
And just gig regularly, yeah.
Yeah, not full time, not just like, you know, 1 a month or something, or, you know, 6 a year or something like that. Because I haven't been raving for years, like going into the rave environment, I've missed that loads, man. Like just the buzz of like walking into the venue, feeling the bass, hearing the bass from outside, but also having that experience, but being on the other side.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I always want to be involved in it. I don't really want to be raving anymore because it just doesn't fit with my life, but I still want to be involved in the scene. And that's kind of what I want to work to over the next 5 years or so, you know.
Yeah, I love it, mate.
Yeah, and hopefully I've still got the drive and the hunger, but, you know, even if that doesn't happen, I can still imagine me making music for quite a while until it gets to the stage where my life just doesn't permit it. But hopefully that will never happen, you know.
I think it's always going to be part of you one way or another.
Definitely, and I'm always making plans as to, like, you know, if we have another baby, where's my studio going to go? You know, I'm thinking forward. You know, I'm thinking I'm not doing that until I'm always going to have my own space to do it. You know. Yeah. I can't see me ever stopping now, and I feel like it would be a bit of a shame if now I've got some momentum to really put the brakes on it. And
well, at least you've got us to a certain skill level, and that's something that'll never go, you know. So even if you took some time off because you had to for family or whatever, you know, you've still got the skills, and it's not like you'll ever lose them.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because
So
even if I could have a break for a year, for instance, and pick it up, just go in and make a tune, and it's all the skills that are necessary to do it will be there. Yeah, so I never thought of it like that, actually. It is a skill. It's not like a sport where your brain still can do it, but your body can't. Isn't it?
It's only like, when your ears give up, really, that you're.
Well, I suppose that's the danger, isn't it? Yeah.
Until that happens, I think you'll always. Well, I'm hoping have the opportunity.
By that happens, there'll be some technological advances that can get around that.
That's true. Yeah. So my last little segment, which is a question that I ask everyone at the end, which is a bit of a dark and somber way to end a podcast.
Okay.
But it's the message from the grave. And if you could have a slogan or one sort of sentence on your gravestone when you leave this place, maybe to inspire other people as well, what would you like to leave?
Well, I don't know if this will inspire anyone, but I would say get off your effing phone. That's what I would say, because I'm addicted to my phone, to be honest. And I waste way too much time on my phone. Sometimes it takes me 20 minutes to get into the vibe of the studio because I'm like picking it up. Someone's messaging me, and I waste untold amounts of time doing it. I'd be so much more productive if I could have it away from me. And I try to do that, but it just creeps back somehow.
Okay.
At work, I use my phone to do all like paperwork and stuff. So I'm always on my phone at work. I have to have my phone to work, and it becomes second nature. So that's the one thing I would say, like, to people, that if they want to be productive, focus, get away, put your phone away, get off Instagram, get off Facebook, and just focus in what you're doing. There's a time and a place for it, definitely, but just try and be a bit more savvy.
For production, like sessions, like when I'm like, all right, I'm going to put 1 or 2 hours into a track now, I will sometimes like go to the kitchen and put my phone like in a drawer and just shut it. Like I'll literally like physically put it in a cupboard or somewhere out of literally out of physical reach and sight.
Brilliant. And that's such a good idea. And actually, I find if the phone isn't near you, you're not tempted.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to put it in a different room and then because then you can't, when you can't reach for it, then you're just like, I'll check it later, and then you can carry on again,
Yeah, and I'll pick it up without even realizing. I've opened an app and I don't even remember the process of picking it up and opening it, and it's
what am I on this again? Fuck.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible. And then like suddenly you're in a group chat on WhatsApp, and you're like, this tune's this 16-bar loop's been going for 10 minutes because I've just been fiddling my phone. So I mean, even like this podcast, like I haven't thought about my phone. If I was downstairs watching TV, I probably would have looked at it 10 times, So you've got to get into the moment, and I think phones really stop you from doing that. So that would be my one bit of advice for people getting into it.
I think that's a great thing to leave on your gravestone. Get off your fucking phone.
It could apply to so many things in life, Although I say the phone, I mean, I was addicted to other stuff when I was younger, like computer games or whatever, so I'll be probably playing COD instead of producing. It's just, but just try and focus on the music, and, you will get results. I'm living proof that you don't need to be a super talented person to like release music. If you really want it, the tools are out there. People like yourself who can give expert advice, it's not expensive. It's not that time consuming. If you really want it, you can do it,
Very inspiring, Dane.
It's good stuff.
Thanks a lot for coming on.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, mate. It's absolutely flown by. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, really enjoyed that, mate.